Join me in welcoming our first speaker for today, Ivan Lai, Identity Practitioner, SailPoint, who'll be kicking off our session. Ivan is an identity and access management security professional with over 12 years of experience in technical sales and identity management consulting. He's a trusted advisor on identity management architecture and deployment to customers, vendors, and systems integrators. Prior to joining SailPoint, he worked for RSA and IBM. Hi, Ivan.
Hi, Jamie.
Welcome to Access Singapore 2020.
Nice
Now,
to be
before we
here.
get into your session, we all know the hybrid work office environment is here to stay. Many organizations have resorted to over-providing users in their race to equip them with the access to collaboration tools they need to be productive. What are the risks associated with that, though?
Well, I guess, too much of everything is actually bad for you. So it's like in health, if you eat too much sugar, you run the risk of getting diabetes. Well, there's a fun
I
one.
wish that wasn't the case.
Me too, actually. Love my sweets. But of course, if you just in another example, right? If you have a house, right, that has probably 100 dolls and each one filled with different quantity of gold, jewelry, and so on and so forth, and you have a key that accesses 75 of them versus 15. So which one do you think will have a better or bigger impact, if it was lost? Mm-hmm. Naturally, it's the one with the 75 access, right? So if you look at it, if organization, in the name of productivity or even convenience, start over provisioning access rights to their employees, they unwittingly or unwillingly, will actually increase their risk surface, where attackers can actually abuse to come in.
Now, before we get into your presentation, can you share with us what SailPoint is all about and what it offers?
SailPoint is a pioneer in identity governance. So back to my earlier example, we will actually help the homeowner understand which key grants access to which door. And of course, eventually, which staff, employees, contractors, or even home members owns what key. Mm. Right? So once you have that visibility, you can actually make intelligent decision whether should you remove the key at the appropriate time to reduce your risk, or grant access to increase productivity.
That's amazing what SailPoint can offer. Today, Ivan will be sharing on modernization of identity management, human-centric security for a digital world. Can't wait to get into it. Here's Ivan's presentation.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Right, welcome to Access Singapore. So today, I basically want to talk about how we should be looking at modernizing identity management, right? Because what we are seeing today are definitely tectonic shifts within the business environment itself. So from a business perspective, right, some of these trends that we are seeing on the screen here. So the first thing first will then be, I think nobody expected this pandemic, a year ago, right? Everybody will be probably planning for their December holidays, but now everybody is stuck in Singapore or, whichever countries you are in. So what this pandemic has brought about is, what we are seeing is inter or even intra countries closure, right? There is driving an adoption for organization to adopt remote access solutions, right? Allowing people to work remotely. Right? This also further drives the explosion growth in SaaS or even cloud-based solutions. So we have actually seen, AWS or even Azure or GCP platform uptake rate increase for the past few years, right? And also drives mobile applications, I would say. Right? Previously, we only are looking at millennials or even the baby boomers adopting them, but now you have governments coming out to actually run programs, right? Or even help centers to actually help the elderly use mobile devices. So all this is driving a rapid explosion in the number of apps organizations are using today. Right, so if you look at this report from Okta, it is based in 2019, so they actually look at their customers from a 2015 to 2018 range, right? What they are saying is customers with more than 2,000 employees, if you look at it, in the 3 years itself, right, saw an increase of almost 2 times the number of apps, right? They have actually grown from 77 to 129, the things that they are using. So besides apps, what happened would then be there's also an explosion in data, right? So the more apps you use, the more data you will generate. But if you take a step back, besides these 2 components, one thing for sure, if you buy an app, develop an app, what you want to do is to let people in. You want people to start using it. Right, so it also means there is an explosive growth in the number of digital identities an organization needs to manage. Right, so if you look at organizations with 2,000 or more employees from the previous report itself, you are actually looking at managing somewhere around 150,000 identities in 2015 to maybe 250,000 in 2018. So considering that, so if you do not actually manage your identity well, it basically means that it's another key that hackers can actually use to exploit against your organization. So is this what is happening? So next is this report from Verizon Data Breach. This is fresh out of the oven. I think it came out in June, if I'm not wrong, this year. Okay, again, the timeline is pretty similar. So what you see on the left is what is happening in 2015, and all the way to the right, that is on the 2020 itself. Right, so if you see there's a numbering on the side, which can be a pretty small, so apologies for that, 1 to 8. What you realize is there is a significant drop in hacking breaches or breaches, right, that is based on malware. Right, so they peaked around over 50% in 2015 and has since dropped to a 6, probably about 6.5% in 2015. So you see on the 2020. So you see on the right, there will be the bottom 3 of it, threat actions. But point to note here will be the human-related kind of incidents have actually risen. So what you see in 2015 has actually risen to the top 2: use of stolen credentials or even phishing. When it comes to phishing, right, what hackers actually love about is credentials. They want to divert your credentials. Once they have your credentials, they can actually easily enter the organization and use it as a springboard or move laterally within the organization IT infrastructure as well. So what we are coming to realize is more frequently, right, hackers tend to target users, right, for their digital identities to gain access to high-value systems and data, while concealing their activities and movements, right, within the IT organization infrastructure, right? Because if I'm using a legitimate access, right, likelihood, system monitoring applications, SIEM solutions will not be able to detect my movement. Right, so considering the number of digital identities an organization need to manage, right? If you remember what I mentioned about 250,000 easily, right? And the myriad of applications with varying levels of permissions, the number of connections or even endpoints can be going into the millions, right? And hackers knows that humans are the one that basically gets into the applications. They are the one who's generate data, so they will definitely be after those identities. So organization is thinking, is this enough, right? So the answer is definitely no. Existing controls, right, will not be sufficient. Why? Because it has radically changed. Today it is not so much about how many levels of firewall you have, right? Once you leave the confine of a secure premise, you go to a SaaS, you go to the cloud. There is no firewalls that is within your premise that will actually help secure your applications. You will be relying on the firewalls that is operated by the SaaS provider and things like that. So eventually, identity is basically the new firewall, right? So if you consider all these challenges. So what can we do to actually help organizations address this identity governance kind of problems? So first, let's take a step back. Look at how we have evolved identity and access management. So traditionally, identity and access management is really about securing and managing digital identity. So if you take the two words apart, right? So what it really means is we are looking at authentication and single sign-on. So basically, if I have access to the key, a key can open the door, I can go in. If this key can open 10 doors, I can go into 10 doors. Most organizations like this aspect of it, right? Why? Because it is convenient. It's the user experience part that sells a lot of times. So when they talk about managing is traditionally a service management kind of concept. Although vendors along the years have tried to make it sexy and throw in security ideas and things like that, but a lot of organizations buy IAM solutions to automatically create and remove accounts like as though they are assets. So it is like using ServiceNow to add or remove assets. But if this is sufficient, right, then you won't have leading analysts, right, from Forrester or even Gartner coming out to say that in the world of distributed employees, where everybody can work anywhere, managing identity and access is the most important part of security. So this is a gap which everybody sees, but are we doing enough to address it? So let's look at what can be done. Here I have a circle with probably 7 smaller circles. We can see what we have as traditional IAM. Inside there, you will have your access management that covers authentication or even multi-factor authentication as we speak today using device biometrics to achieve single sign-on, as well as automated lifecycle management. But more importantly, we need to move to what we call identity security. So when we talk about identity security, you need to actually look at a few of other capabilities and features, right? Namely, I'm not going to go in sequence here, right? Things like compliance controls and certifications that help an organization implement continuous governance, right? It helps you keep clean. So you won't have all these challenges where, if I can use the Singapore government as an example, right? If you will be able to see that for the past couple of years, when the AGC report their findings on the gaps within the IT system itself, one thing always comes up, and that is basically users' accesses are not removed when they leave the organizations. So there isn't really a good certifications or compliance governance controls within the government. So we are also then looking at policies and role-based access controls. So when we talk about policies and role-based access control, it is important because managing 120, 150, or even 200 applications is difficult. Every applications have their own separation of duty policies, right? Have their own maker and checker policies. And sometimes if you have developed in-house applications, if the person who owns the project leaves the organization, what you are losing is knowledge about what are those policies, what are those controls that should be mutually exclusive. So using a central system to store and enforce all these policies will actually help you retain your knowledge of the applications. It helps prevent brain drain, right? Or even ensuring a consistent enforcement across all your applications, be it they are on the cloud or on premise itself. And lastly, if you want to look at things like making the complex simple, right? You want people to use it. So if you look at the Gartner Trends report, one of the key pillars is people centricity, where we talk about the user experience of things. And that is where we can actually use things like AI or even machine learning or what we call identity analytics, right? To make recommendations when users are making access requests or when we are doing certification, so as to take away certification fatigue, as what we call it. And the next one would then be cloud and data access governance. This is important because at the end of the day, we are seeing a rapid adoption of SaaS or even cloud-based computing environment. having an understanding of what exists, what kind of assets, what kind of access rights you have within your cloud environments actually help you curtail all your risks, right? And data, everybody is after data. Data is the most important thing. And when you open up applications, while you can control who can get into the applications, a legitimate user will always be able to extract the data out from the system. So when that happens, the data sits in thumb drive, hard disk, file storage system, collaboration systems like SharePoint. How are you going to enforce consistent controls and policies when you do not know who has access to them? So what we are looking at will then be, work from anywhere, not only means self-service or even password management, right? At this point, organizations should be considering what is the next thing, right? It need not be a pandemic. It can be a natural disaster, right? Or it can be, who knows, terrorist attack, right? Nobody can say when is it going to happen, but surely something is going to happen, right? So the ability to centrally see, right, and control and manage change, have that propagate across all your systems, right? Whether they are in the secure premises, in your building, or in the cloud itself, is something important. And this cannot be accomplished, right, by basic controls, basic access management and authentication. Remember, identity governance, right, is the brains behind access management. And you need to have intelligent identity governance, right, in order for access to be granted or revoked in a timely manner. So the future of identity is here, right? Everyone in this room will still be a vital part of a predictive future. Generally speaking, AI ML is here to stay. It's just when or how your organization is going to adopt it. So our roles may actually shift from something that is more administrative, right, trying to actually say I want to approve or remove access rights, right, to a mindset where it interprets data, right, and provides insights to make human and machine IGA world more intelligent. As you can see, there's a lot here that SailPoint Predictive Identity can help you with, regardless whether is it to automate secure access, adapt and automate your security policies so that it makes your business agile and move across SaaS, cloud, as well as on-premise solutions. And the most important part, fundamental, how do you actually keep and stay compliant, continuous governance, so you can actually stay in complete control. So, my friends here, digital transformation and this pandemic, right, is changing the way we do business today. And with it, CIOs typically grapple with the security and compliance implications, as well as the challenge of automating processes to ensure users are productive. That's why SailPoint's fundamental belief is that in today's enterprise, identity is power. Right? We help customers address those challenges securely and confidently, so they can focus on growing and innovating. It is time to rethink your identity, strategy, and journey. Are you ready for it? Thank you.
Thanks for the really great presentation, Ivan. Now we have a few questions from the audience. You ready for that?
Yeah.
Okay,
sure.
Your first question is, does it mean that changing to a newer identity management solution will address the identity governance related challenges, and what other things should we look out for?
I guess, using newer technology is just but one side of a coin. You also have to look at, your internal processes as well as policies, right? Are they keeping up with times? Often what we realize is organizations do not renew or review those policies. They are still using new technologies with outdated policies and processes, which makes it cumbersome. So I think that is something organizations should bear in mind before embarking on their identity journey.
Okay, next question. Do you recommend using a SaaS or on-premise solution to govern identities given today's business climates?
if you look at it, right, 1 year ago, I don't think I'll be here in this studio doing a recording. If no, I guess everybody will understand this, right? You will be up in the stage and then doing some presentation. So the pandemic actually changes not just how we operate, but as human beings, right? But even the business itself. So I would say from this end, a lot of organizations will be looking at assess deployment as a strategy moving forward. Definitely in that context, because at the end of the day, it gives them the ability to have somewhat a location independent or resilient delivery of their software services, right? But what works or what doesn't work entails proper planning. So even if you look at the on-premise solution, it has its benefits. So an organization will actually need to choose one that will actually help them realize their potential and allows them to move freely between the two if possible.
Okay, thanks very much, Ivan.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, that was Ivan Lai from SailPoint.